right, YouTube is a go. Facebook is loading. All right. Welcome, everyone. We are live on all the platforms. So thank you guys for tuning in wherever you're at. I'm excited. It's Tuesday. It's Build with the CEO time. And I've got a special guest today. I'm bringing in Mike. We've been talking about leads all month, really, in lots of different respects. And so Mike is someone that has built an incredible business himself, but he's also helping other coaches, specifically in the nutrition space, really build incredible businesses as well. And we all know that like leads are the lifeblood of a business. And so, Mike, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So just for some quick context, give like the quick 1-2 minute kind of background on you, the business you're running, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So started in the space over a decade ago. Went from personal trainer to nutrition coach for another company to starting my own nutrition coaching business in 2018. Scaled that pretty quickly. So my first year in business with that one, we did 500,000 in revenue, then went up to 750, then 1.2 million, then 1.5 million. I still have that business today. And then because I scaled pretty quickly, I had a lot of coaches who wanted
Right.
to know how. So I started helping other coaches. Really, my wheelhouse or superpower is more in the messaging side of things, copywriting,
Yep.
messaging, email marketing. So that's what I do now. And I have a membership that I work with. I have over 500 coaches in there. So I'm in the trenches with my own business, and then I get to see kind of a cool perspective of working with so many other coaches and what's working in the space now, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of keeping my finger on the pulse of the fitness and nutrition industry and
Yeah.
what's working in marketing.
I love that. And so I just want to kind of highlight a few things because I think part of your rise and why you've been able to have a lot of success is some elements of branding, right? And so can you speak a little bit to like the neurotyping? Like you took like a specific method, right, around your nutrition coaching, which allowed you to maybe stand out in an audience of lots of nutrition coaches and other people. And so I think that's been a huge catalyst for you as far as your growth is like, hey, we have the specific methodology and it's based around X, Y, and Z things. And here's how we're different. So can you speak a little bit to kind of the neurotyping and how you kind of incorporated that into your method for your nutrition coaching company?
Yeah, and it was a thing where I didn't recognize that it was an important like marketing piece. It was just something that I really believed in because it
Right.
helped me personally. It was like I learned it, I applied it, I saw amazing progress, and I was like, everybody needs to know this because yeah, it makes sense. And there's like the intuition that we have as trainers and coaches that not everybody's the same, and
Hmm.
coaching clients as just like carbon copies of each other doesn't work. So I really attached to that methodology, and then as I learned more about marketing, I was like, oh, I created a unique selling proposition without even
Right.
knowing it. So I believe every business, every coach should have that. You should have a clear framework or methodology or unique selling proposition that allows you to separate yourself from everybody else because all coaches are talking about basically the same thing.
Right.
And most clients have already been through all those other programs that talk about the same thing. So how can you show the person that you're talking to that what you offer is undeniably different, and
Hmm.
it's not just going to be like by saying it's different, right? Like the criminal says I didn't do it and the innocent person says I didn't do it, so like you all sound the same. So like we have to have that unique way of speaking about our process and our methodology that feels different to the audience, so then we can actually get them the results that they deserve.
Are there any like tools or um what's the word I'm looking for? Are there any like worksheets or tools or like things that you take coaches through to help them maybe come up with their unique methodology or even some ways of thinking about it? Because I think this is a common problem for a lot of coaches is like, I'm talking about weight loss and fat loss and it's kind of the same as the other guy, but like how do I create my unique methodology?
Yeah, completely. So the first thing that I have somebody do is usually with coaches, they're like, well, it always depends on the client. And yes, I get that it depends on the client, but I promise there are things that you do for every single client, no matter what. So the first thing is list out all the steps when somebody comes to work with you from day one. What are all the steps that you take them through and be very detailed, like list it all out. So that's the
Hmm.
first thing. So it'll be like, first we do an intake and I have them track, 7 days of whatever they're
Hmm.
eating. And then we look at their activity history, and then we look at this, and then we look at that, and then I give them, calorie and fiber and protein prescription. Like, go through every single step that you do. And then from there, you can start to group those together into phases. Typically, I like to work with 3 phases, but it doesn't have to be three. But usually, what you'll find is that there's a purpose. So, like, a lot of times in the beginning, you're trying to set some sort of like foundation or get them in a position where they're going to respond well to fat loss, let's say. So there's an initial phase of, priming or restoration or rebuilding, right? That can be phase 1, and then you go into more of the, all right, now we're going to get into the actual body composition results that you want. That can be more of like an acceleration phase. And then the final thing that they do is usually it's maintenance. It's helping them live life with the results that they've created. So that can be some kind of a, lifestyle integration type of phase. So it's like, take all the steps, outline them, and then try to group them together and understand like the purpose that they all serve. There's like one big outcome that you're trying to accomplish from phase 1. It's, foundation building or priming or restoration or rebuilding, rewiring, whatever it may be, depending on your focus. Then there's some kind of like results oriented acceleration phase. And then there's some kind of a maintenance lifestyle forever plan.
Right.
And then we can just put a naming mechanism on it from there.
Right. I mean, and you were even adding in some naming mechanisms throughout, right? Giving each phase a very distinct word that it describes that phase so that people can look at it. I always give the example of like P90X, right? It's just like high intensity interval training. Like if we think about like what it is, it's just like plyometrics and jumping around, but they called it P90X. And so that gave it like this unique, cool thing that's different than maybe your local Y or someone else that maybe is doing a high intensity class, right?
Yeah.
So sweet, man. Well, I wanted to make sure I covered that because I think you've done a phenomenal job in that respect. And I think it's good for coaches to look at, organizations, businesses, and other coaches that have really dialed this piece in. But the main thing I wanted to talk about today was lead generation. And so as a business grows, right, lead generation becomes more and more and more important, right? Because this is like the fuel for the engine. As much as we think clients are going to stay forever, they don't, right? Every client has a life cycle. And so we need to be replacing those clients. And when a business is larger and they have multiple coaches and you have lots more overhead and expenses, lead gen becomes a very important thing. So a lot of times how I like to look at this is like, what are the big businesses doing? And then let's talk about that. And then let's take like, all right, what are the things then can the person who only has 2 clients or the person that doesn't have any clients yet, what things can they pull from what's working at scale? So tell us a little bit about kind of what your lead generation pipeline looks like right now. Kind of what are the different, maybe fishing poles you have in the water and how are you attracting clients in different areas?
Yeah. So before I get into that, I have to have this disclaimer, which is I always, so when I ask coach, I did a workshop with like 300 coaches, and I asked everybody on the workshop, like, how many leads right now in your pipeline do you feel like you have? And the most common answer was like 0 or 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's like currently today you have 0 or you have no leads, or you have like 1 lead that you're talking to. That was the most common. Some people are like 5, 10, whatever, but 99% it was 0 or 1. And then I was like, okay, let's do this exercise real quick. How many people have you had that like signed up for a challenge but they didn't convert into one-on-one coaching? Have you ever done like live trainings that people attended? Have you had previous applications that didn't close? Have you had old clients that left and they haven't been a client for a while? Have you ever done like a scholarship and you had a bunch of people that applied for a scholar? And I started listing out all of these different avenues of creating interest. And then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, take a second, just think about those sources, and now tell me how many leads you think you have. And the numbers started to go up to like
Right.
50, 100, 150. So the first thing is like, start at the end. It's like so many coaches focus on like, how do I grow on social media? How do I build an audience? How do I generate new leads? And they're missing the people that are slipping through the cracks, that are already in their warm network, that have
Mm-hmm.
shown interest and they just never got followed up with. It was like, oh, this person didn't close, so now they're just dead to me or
Right.
whatever. You have people in your
Right.
existing network that are leads right now. So I just wanted to start there.
Well, I mean, I just to kind of add to that is right. people's life circumstances change, right? All the time. And so when they first reached out, maybe it wasn't the right time for them, but all they need is that person to reach out again and just be like, "Hey, Mike, where are you at? I just wanted to check in and see if we could help at all." Right. They may now be in a stage of life where they're like, "Okay, I'm ready to commit to this." And so, like, to your point, right, anyone you've ever worked with, those just stay in your pool and continuing to, and we'll kind of talk about this a little bit later, but continue to provide value to those people so that you just stay top of mind for when they're ready, they think of you to be their solution.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. So that's the first thing. And there's a ton of sources of leads. Like I, map out all the different avenues of where you can build that pipeline that
Hmm.
already exists right now. But if we're talking about like new lead generation, I look at it from a three-pronged approach, which would be you've got organic, you've got paid, and you've got borrowed. And those are the three things that I implement in both businesses. So with my nutrition coaching business and with my email marketing business,
Hmm.
I've always got organic content going. And then I've always got paid ads going. And I've always got some kind of like partnership or borrowed audience trying to get in front of other people who have my ideal client. They've already built the audience. And um, I think that one is probably the most underutilized from coaches. I think that there's some kind of hesitation with like borrowed, like, oh, if I make the ask, they're going to turn me down. Okay, well then move on to the next one. And I've
Right.
even for me, like I have a podcast that's, somewhat popular. It gets like 20,000 downloads a month. Um, and actually I'm undershooting it. It's more than that. But anyway, it's I offered it up to all the coaches. It was like all you have to do is ask, and I'll let anybody join my podcast. Anybody can come on. I've had like 3 coaches take me up on that offer, and the last woman that joined, she got a new client within like a day. Like episode released, she's like, "Holy shit, Mike! I can't believe this! I had this person reach out and signed up for coaching after listening to our episode." I'm like, yeah, and of the 500 coaches that I offered this to, there's only been like 3 of them that have said yes, and it was so. Anyway, I think the borrowed audience is such a huge one to like doing joint promotions, joint workshops, trainings, offering up service. Like we've had coaches who have partnered with like med spas, they partnered with chiropractors, they partnered with massage therapists, they partnered with um, people, even like plastic surgeons or people who are doing some like weight loss injections, but they need support, they need the nutrition and lifestyle coaching. There's so
Right.
many opportunities to have synergy with a partnership.
I love that. And so, borrowed audiences, organic, paid. Let's talk organic because I think that's where a lot of people go to initially. They're like, "Oh, I need a big social media presence. I need to put all like I need to produce more content, yada yada yada." How do you kind of talk to that coach a little bit about creating, because that's kind of a long game, right? Like social media is definitely like you're playing for the long term. And so how do you balance that with I need to get clients now and maybe some other strategies where like we need to pay some bills at the
Yeah.
moment?
So the nice part when you're smaller, I actually try to reframe it as an advantage because if I have 100 followers on Instagram, that's 100 one-on-one conversations that I can have. And it's not that like I'm not trying to sift through 50,000 followers. I'm not trying to like, you know, post and hope that people, 1% of my audience is maybe seeing the post or whatever. Like if I have 100 people, I can be more hands-on and proactive with the conversations. I can over deliver, I can ask questions, I can, be more active in my DMs and message those people. And I think if there's more of an opportunity for that one-on-one personalization, I can offer up like a free macro review for every single follower. I can message every single follower that comes in and thank them and give them a resource and get them on my email list. So I think it's consistency. It's showing up. Like for coaches who struggle with organic, most of the time they're just really inconsistent with it. They're either inconsistent with their messaging or they're just inconsistent in general, or like not getting the instant gratification. So they're like, oh well, maybe I should move to like some other platform instead of just focusing on showing up consistently, dialing in their messaging, talking to their audience, and like actually being engaged and active on social media instead of
Hmm.
treating it like more of a passive thing, hoping that somebody comes to them or hoping that
Right.
somebody fills out an application. So I do think that there's more of an opportunity when you are smaller and just getting established, like you have a smaller audience on social media, there is an advantage there.
How do you balance, like again, like how much should you be posting? Like you listen to people all across the board, right? And some people are like, yeah, you post multiple times a day. Other people are like, once a week. Do you see any kind of sweet spots with the coaches that you're seeing have success, and even in kind of your own business?
Yeah. So the way that I try to frame it is when you're getting started, you're trying to find what resonates the most with your audience. And the best way to do that is testing. So I always just try to frame it as data. Like we're trying to find the messaging that connects the most with your audience. And it's really hard to do that if you're just posting once a week. Now, I'm
Okay.
not sitting like, I don't tell people to post multiple times a day or anything like that, but like, can we get 5 days a week? And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, 5 to 7 would be ideal, somewhere in that range. But for me, it's like I want faster data because I want to be able to adjust and make those tweaks and optimizations based off of what's working. So I like faster data. So that's where I would tell people like 5 to 7 days a week, you're probably in a good sweet spot where we're going to learn pretty quickly what message is resonating and what's not, and we can make the adjustments from there.
And then kind of moving to paid, like when should someone start looking at deploying paid?
So, I mean, it really depends on how much of a budget they have. I think that when you can reasonably afford $5 a day, you should probably start doing that. Um, and it's not
And
going to impact. Go ahead.
when we say paid, right? So there's kind of like there's a few pieces to it. There's like paid to trying to convert someone or trying to get someone to fill out an application or like a high level of intent, right? Versus paid to like get someone to download a resource or get them onto my email list. And so when we talk about paid, which are you talking about?
Yeah, so I have different tiers of page strategies that I help people with. Um, there's like simple follower ads that work really well on Instagram. And
Okay.
so, like, the whole purpose of the ad is just to get new followers.
Interesting.
And then from there, you reach out, you
Right.
message all the new followers, you create conversations, and that does work. And so that's a simple, like very low cost. You, again, like $5 a day, $10 a day, you're good. You'll get a good amount of followers, like maybe $1 or less per follow if you're doing it right. And like we want to be testing again and looking at the data, but you don't have to spend a lot to get a return on that. Then there can be like a next level up would be like direct to message ads, particularly on Instagram, where the call to action is a DM. So there's a little bit more of an intent there, but it's a little bit more expensive because paying for a DM is going to cost more than paying for a follow. And then we can get into more like lead magnet, direct to application funnels. Like it can get complicated, but you typically need more of a budget. Even from just an awareness piece, like you can, the cool thing about Facebook is I can retarget people who watch my ads. So if I just do like a $5 a day awareness ad and it's just to, solve a problem, like let's say I am somebody who specializes in like metabolic health or hormone health or something, and I do a video that's like a 3 to 5 minute video and it's just value driven, not trying to convert anybody, it's just value driven. I can then take all of the people who have watched, let's say, 25% or more of that video and ultimately retarget them. It's kind of like building a hidden audience in the background. And again, it's more of a kind of a long-term strategy because over time, if we're doing that over months, you may have thousands and thousands of people that you could then retarget and offer them something in the future. So there's different strategies, but I think to keep it simple, like starting with a follower ad is a really straightforward, like low hanging fruit way of growing your audience and generating leads without having to spend a lot on ads.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a really good strategy. And as long as you're willing to send the DMs when someone follows you or thank them for following you and trying to provide value early on and start those conversations.
Yeah, is definitely important that you're active in doing that and not just like letting it
Right.
sit there. And speed to lead is real when it comes to stuff like that. You
Hmm.
want to be the one that stands out. Even better if you do like a video message or a voice message and it's very personalized and it's clear that it's not automated, like you
Right.
actually looked at their profile and maybe made a comment that's relevant. So the more that you can make it like human to human, just be a human,
Yep.
the better off you'll be with that.
I love that. That's awesome. So, I mean, for you looking at like a 7-figure coaching business, right? Like what are some of the lead sources that you guys have, and where are you guys putting a lot of your focus now? Because lead generation is much different for a coach that, just has a handful of clients versus a coach that has tens of thousands of dollars in overhead every month.
Yeah. Yeah. So the big thing for me for my nutrition coaching business is the podcast, my email list. And then, I was able to grow that with partnerships as well. So I still actively look. I just had a partnership that came to fruition this past month that's helped like generate tons of applications and interest, and it's something that's going to be ongoing. So I still do all the things that I teach other coaches.
Right.
The same process. I'm fortunate enough now where I've been doing this long enough and have been building my audience long enough where like my email list is pretty large. I can
Hmm.
pull applications from there when I make an offer. I can get a good amount of people into a challenge and then convert from there. But all of the same strategies. It's still organic growth, paid mostly to my email list. The podcast is part of the organic process, and then
Hmm.
partnerships are still huge for me.
So the last partnership, was that in like a complementary industry? Was that just another coach? Was it like a fitness coach that needed a nutrition thing? What kind of industry was that in?
Yeah. So she's actually somebody who only does challenges and has never offered one-on-one coaching.
Okay.
So I was like, hey, as a partnership, like I could start helping you fill your challenges with my audience, and then in
Mm,
return you can help me fill my one-on-one coaching program with your audience, and we'll just kind of partner that way. And we came up with the details of
right.
everything, and that was it.
That's a really unique That's unique, right? Because most people would think of that as like competitors. Hey, we're in the same space. We're kind of going after the same clients, but also not, because some clients are really interested in challenges and they like the 6 week sprints or 21-day sprints or things like that. And other clients need that like deep, high level type of coaching. And so that's really cool that you guys were able to find some synergy, despite being like quote unquote competitors, right?
Yeah, yeah, completely. Yeah, and I think it's just talk. If it didn't happen, it didn't happen. I think
Right.
it's just having those conversations and like let's just see if there's the opportunity. And it was something that we had talked about for a while, and then just probably 2 years later, it was like, hey, now's a good time. Let's do it, and here we are.
And so for you, everything too for you funnels to your email list. Is that right? Like all these things we're trying to ultimately get people on the list to then be able to nurture and stay in front of.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean that's where most of the trust building, the nurture, and like moving people along the buying process, most of that for me happens on my email list. So yeah, that's my always the goal is
And
to
is
grow.
that, I mean, you're a great writer. Like you do well with that medium as far as content creation and value. But for most of the coaches that are part of kind of your group, is email something that you're like, hey, this is a mainstay that pretty much everyone should have, even if you maybe enjoy social media or are better on video and those kind of things, you still need the email list.
I do. I'm a big proponent of it. I just think that it's such a valuable asset, and you're relying so much with social media. It's very unpredictable in the algorithm, and like it can disappear in a moment. And it's more of like, if nothing else, let's just use your email as insulation and almost like an insurance policy that like God forbid if something happened and you're so dependent on Instagram and your account got shut down or Instagram went away, like you don't
Hmm.
own that account. It's Instagram's account. So they can do whatever they want with it. And like again, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if nothing else, let's just use that as your insurance policy. But yeah, I think for most coaches who put a little bit of time, they get a huge return on email because it is such a great nurture channel. And it is somebody who's taken the next step. They're saying, like, I'm giving you my contact information because I like what you're talking about and I want more
Hmm.
of it, or I like what you have
Right.
to offer and I want to hear more. So it's that next step in the relationship, and it provides a great opportunity to continue to
Right.
nurture and build trust.
I like that. And I know you email almost every day, at least every day during the week. For new coaches, is there a certain cadence that you feel like is the minimum? Like, hey, what do we got to hit every week? Is it two times, three times, one time?
Yeah, once a week to start. Again, similar like somebody who's never worked out before.
Hmm.
Not, you don't want them going to the gym 7 days a week. So I would say start with once a week. Be really consistent with it. You know, it's get in the habit of like let's just say you pick a Monday. That's going to be your time. just get in the habit of not missing. Every single Monday, my email goes out no matter what at 9 a.m. Eastern or whatever
Hmm.
time you choose. And just be really consistent with that. And you might be like, you know what? This is pretty easy. Now I can go to 2 times a week,
Right.
and then just take it from there.
Right. And then as far as content, are there any really good ways? Because the next question is gonna be like, oh, what do I talk about?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it becomes pretty easy once we start talking about content ideas. One of my biggest ones is just answer the questions that your clients have and just do it now in a format to lots of other people. Are there any quick content ideas that you have that help coaches just start generating, that list of stuff to talk about?
Yeah, that's it. Solve one problem for one person. Like you can look back at like all the client conversations that you had during the week, things that you've consumed on social media that maybe like rubbed you the wrong way, and you're like, I can't believe that they're telling people to stop eating fruit or whatever it is. Like stuff that you're seeing, stuff that you're talking about with your clients, things that you're actively working on, or things that you've helped your clients. The best thing to do is look at your check-ins. Your
Yeah.
clients will tell you like the things that they're proud of, the things that or even the setbacks that they've had. Okay, well, now I can take this client setback and I can write about it and solve that problem. Like, Susie was all upset that the scale went up, and because of that she decided to eat whatever she wanted. And let's talk about the all or nothing mindset, or let's talk about how to stop the scale from getting in your head and then solve that problem. And then
Hmm.
it's just, if you could just look at it from, instead of overthinking it, just solve one problem for one person in your email. And again, we can get more advanced. I can give more structure and frameworks and all of that stuff, but to like begin and get consistent, that's where I start everyone. Solve a
Right.
problem for a person every time you write.
I love that. It's awesome, Mike. So if people want to learn a little bit more about you, kind of follow your journey, what are some good places for them to do that?
Yeah, Instagram, at coach_Mike_Milner. My podcast is called Mind Over Macros. So I do episodes for clients and episodes for coaches. The coaches one is just called the Coach's Compass. Um, it's under Mind Over Macros, so you'll see it on there. And yeah, those are good ways to connect.
Sweet, man. I love it. I really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing your insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next Tuesday. All right. There we go. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. How things going?
things are good. Super busy, very stressful. Yeah.
A good stress?
Yeah, yeah. This is the life we chose, right?
Right. Yeah, yep.